What happens when you give a media personality and a sex therapist a podcast? You get Spill the Tea, a bold, unfiltered space where no topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the messy, hilarious, and heartbreaking realities of life. Will Nash and Maria Orrego serve up real talk with expert insight, hot takes, and a whole lot of tea.
We can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know what? I'm on Tinder. I'm recently back on Tinder. And
I love that you're using the free version though, because you're not like fully committed to it yet.
100%. I'm not fully committed to it yet. I mean, there is a difference. I do know that there is a difference, and I'm just not at the point where I want to pay for it. I mean, I can't pay for groceries, but I can pay for a dating app? Like, what's up with that?
Oh my gosh, that's so true. If you put it inside that way, oh my goodness. Yeah, that's
not maybe if I pay for Tinder, find a sugar daddy, then it's kind of like a 2-in-1, right?
It's a win-win. You should put that on your like little profile. Looking for a sugar daddy to pay for my groceries while I pay for my Tinder app.
At least I have my head on there and I'm not holding a fish. So I feel like I'm above that.
There's so many of those pictures, online of like the very stereotypical one, the one with the fish, the one with the dog, the one with the random girl, but it's like sister vibes so that you know I'm approachable, right? Men always have those. The ones with the girls are always interesting too. The ones where they're like hiking because they want to be outdoorsy.
Oh my God. Well, and the funny thing is too, is we're talking online dating apps, and I get that. But it's like Grindr is more like online hookup apps for gay men. But there's so many black screens. There's so many, headless warriors. You know what I mean? So it's like so many of your husbands, like that could be it.
Yeah, which is so scary, right? When you think about online dating in the online world, obviously we all know about like Ashley Madison and how that came out, which to be honest, they were upfront about what they were doing, which kudos for them. Like they were saying exactly what they were, what type of platform they were, what they were putting out there. But all of these apps are pretty scary of the fact that you can be swiping or a friend can be swiping and all of a sudden it's like a partner or a friend's partner or something like that of people that are actually in committed relationships who don't identify as open or polyamorous. And then you find them just cheating on these apps. It's really sad.
It is really sad. But I mean, is it bad to say it's really sad, but it's just kind of the reality in the sense, and it's not that makes it right, but there are so many people, however they are living, whether they are married and cheating, whether that's, with someone of the opposite sex or the same sex, or maybe they're not even cheating. Well, again, depends on your definition of cheating. Maybe they're just online having conversations, sharing pictures. But I'll tell you, even if I was to go on Grindr and, because you get bored, right? It's like, I'm not going to respond to someone who I can't see a picture of. And I don't think that's being vain or shallow, and maybe it is a little, but I think that like, why am I going to open myself up to somebody, even in a conversation, if they don't even have the decency or the respect to show me what you look like? Even if you look like a troll, I want to know that I'm dealing with a troll.
It's true. And it's not vain, actually. It's also kind of a bit of a safety mechanism, right? Like if you want to know if you're actually speaking, first of all, to a real person, if you're being catfished or not, right? Or if you're just talking to maybe a bot, or you're talking to someone that's trying to be really mean and hook you into something that you're not actually consenting to be part of. I agree, though. I think having your picture up there is necessary. It can be like vulnerable, right? To put yourself out there.
I think that's for me why I held off on online dating for a very long time. And part of it was the fact that, previously, and even still to some extent, I've had a very public job, right? So it's kind of like, and if you live in a smaller city, and I know if friends might end up hearing this, they're going to totally razz me about this, but, you get to know a lot of people in your job and in your career. And even though I was working in broadcasting, there's social media. So it's not like back in the day when somebody would be on air and you wouldn't necessarily know what they looked like. Like now we know all that stuff. I mean, I would assume, I know, if you were dating and if you were online dating with your job, like it's kind of the same thing because you have a very, in a sense, public job.
I agree. I think a lot of therapists, what they'll do is actually really interesting. Most people do this, but you date outside of your own city, or you date in like areas where you know that you may not be having, like, you don't have patients or clients that actually interact with you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that do that. I mean, it doesn't really matter whether you're high profile or not. I think a lot of people do that so that they don't run into
I know.
people on the road, right? Or maybe at like school or something like that
Yeah.
when you're dating. So yeah, I think online dating it's an interesting phenomenon that's definitely changed the way that we see the world, the way that we interact with the world, the way that we interact with dating in general, and even how we see ourselves, right? The amount of rejection, the
Oh,
amount of
yeah.
like ghosting, being left on red, all those wonderful things, the amount of pain that somebody can feel just by going on an app and swiping or not swiping, or getting a response or not getting a response. It's craziness out there.
Can I vent a little bit for a second, Maria, or is that not
Of
allowed
course.
here?
No, of
It
course
is.
it's allowed.
I
That's
don't
the
want this
way.
to be like Will's personal rants, like ever. And please feel free to rant as well on our podcast. Um, I hate when people who are in LTRs, long-term relationships, who maybe like met either like before the online world or like really early on, are like, well, if you're having trouble finding someone or, going on a date with a decent person, why don't you try online dating? Like, it's like, I feel like saying to those people, do you even know? Like, you were like dating before there was online dating, or you really, kind of met someone through a friend or something else. Like, it is hard. And it is, I don't want to say it's harder when, you're a part of the queer community, because I think it's hard for people as a whole. I really do. I think that the only thing I'll say is I live in a small city, like north of Toronto, and it is different than when you're in a larger city who just by population is going to have more people in your community as your identity, right? But I hear horror stories from girlfriends and male friends all the time about how hard it is. And let's be honest, it gets harder as you get wiser because you do kind of get set in your own ways and your own routines. So
You do. That's true. And it's not a very kind world, right? The online dating world, unfortunately, there's like this loss of like morals and politeness and just common decency, which I
yeah,
always find so interesting. It's like going to Costco. All of a sudden, everybody's like fighting for themselves, right?
they want a sample.
Online,
Everybody wants a sample of what's out there.
exactly. But online dating is like that. So one of the exercises I actually put a lot of like my interns through sometimes is, if they have clients that are going through online dating and perhaps they're older and they've never done online dating, or they've been in a long-term relationship and never experienced it, I do actually ask them to do some research and go on maybe with a friend who is single, or just asking questions of people they know so that they can hear the horror stories, right? Because it can be a very mean place when you're just saying like, hey, I'm really not interested, but thanks a lot. And then the person just like basically screams at you through text for like not
Yeah.
giving them the time of day, or for being like X, Y, and Z, or just telling them that they don't deserve time with you. The things that you hear in online dating are incredibly mean.
It is true. That's the thing. I think that with the world itself, but especially with online dating, like even if you're not necessarily interested in, let alone meeting the person or going out on a date with someone, even if you're not interested in having a conversation with them. And listen, I'm not always good at this myself too. I mean, I've been known to get in a conversation, realize very quickly that this person is not for me, and then I just like exited the app, right? So I need to practice what I preach too. But I think that if you can kind of just communicate with them, that, you know what, I think that for right now this isn't for me, but I'm
Yeah.
out of here, like sort of thing. Because it's like, everyone's attracted to something different, and that is not just physical. That's going to be, that's going to be morals. That's going to be lifestyle. That's going to be, what do you like to do when you are done work for the day, right? Like, do you have similar hobbies, similar activities? And you don't have to, because I know a lot of couples who have completely opposite taste in like music and movies and TV shows and, activities, but there has to be, again, I'm talking like I'm an expert, but I'm not an expert because I am single. So I can't say like I know how to perfectly, it's funny because I can help other people out with their relationships somehow. People are like, oh, that's such great advice. But like, I guess like I said, I need to take my own advice more. But,
But I love that you say that though, because online dating is built off of that idea of like quote unquote compatibility when it
yeah.
comes to like, we both like to hike, we both like to work out, I like to read books, right? And the reality is that most long-term relationships actually don't have those things in common because it's not about that. That's not the essence of a relationship, right? It's that chemistry between the two of you. Can you understand each other? Can you communicate? Do you both love life in the same way or see the world in the same way? Those are the real values, whether or not you read because I read.
Yeah.
Yes. Does that mean that on a Saturday morning we can sit and read a book over coffee? 100%. But if you have different morals and values than I do, I don't care that you read, right? That shouldn't actually make a big difference. So I do find that interesting with online dating that we set ourselves up with like, oh my gosh, he hikes. Oh my gosh, he has a dog. Yeah, but
And
he
the other
might
thing is too,
be a
sorry.
person.
The other thing is too, is like, he's hiking right now, but I mean, and hopefully he'll do something for the, while he is with you and you'll be active together and whatnot, because that's obviously good for you. But it doesn't mean he's going to be doing that set activity till the day that he's, till more. Like interests change, hobbies change, activities change, right? So it's like, I think we have to be open to that. And it's also, I mean, I think about forgetting the relationships. Like I think about some of my closest relationships, and when I say that, I mean friendships. And it's like, there's so many friends that I have who we have opposite tastes in things, but it's not, and we'll meet halfway. Like we'll compromise, we'll meet somewhere, but it's like, it's more for me anyways. Like when I build a relationship with someone, it's more about that connection. It's more about them being like a good person. I mean, honestly, now more than ever, like values do mean a lot, however you want to perceive values. So, I mean, you have to think about that, right? You have to really think about that. But it's not easy out there. If anyone sometimes we're given tips and tricks on this podcast, but if you have any tips and tricks, they're always welcome. Not just for me, but for everybody.
Can we talk about the fact, though, that you can have an excellent conversation online with someone and then you sit down for coffee with them and they are a completely different human? I think you mentioned this before when we were chatting. But I think it happens to all of us, right? You're online dating. I know that so many of my clients that have done online dating have kind of come in with the same complaint that they're like, we had so much chemistry. They were so excited. They like were enthusiastic. They kept the conversation going. And then I went to coffee and it was like a fully different person with no enthusiasm, no like joy in their life, and just had no conversation skills. It's such a different life online than actually seeing someone in a coffee shop or at dinner together.
This is where I struggle because, we have a podcast. So obviously I like to talk. I worked for years in broadcasting. I'm still in communications and PR. So obviously like I love to talk. Like anyone who knows me knows that. And I do end up becoming really close friends for people who are the same, or they just like to listen. And so I've done that before where I've chatted to someone online and then we go to Starbucks, go for a coffee. And yeah, I don't like dead air. So I'm going to fill that space. And yeah, I don't mind talking about myself, right? Like I'm one of those people, I will tell you all those things. But I also want to know about you. I want you to be as interested in yourself as you are in me. Because
I love that.
Even back to the whole thing about, if you're in a job where it's like a public job where a lot of people and you feel like you're bumping into all the same people all the time, it's fine to kind of have that, but also, and even if someone like, and it sounds like so cringy, but if someone like knew me from, being on the radio or posting on social media, like that's fine. But I think it's like, I only like, don't be like so interested in that. Like be like, oh, okay, that's cool that you do that. But like, what else are you about? What's your family like? What hobbies do you like? Where do you come from? Like, what do you value in your life, or what are you passionate about? Right. I think that that can happen too. And it's because even like this podcast, like this is just one side of us. There's so many other sides of us that other people in our lives know about that nobody will ever know on this podcast.
It's so true. I love that you say that because it's so important when you're online dating. I think people get stuck in like one route of questioning or one route of conversations, or even it gets to sexting really quickly. I don't know if you've noticed that at least I've noticed it with a lot of my clients, that like they go
Oh, I've
from
noticed it. I have noticed it.
or like it
Sometimes
goes
it's
from
my fault.
I love that all the inappropriate DMs that come in. But they go so fast with that. And then it's built off of this like weird premise that it's going to be like hot and spicy, right? All of a sudden. But you're meeting a stranger at Starbucks. It's not going to be that. Most people are actually not as secure as they are online when they're texting, because they're like behind a screen. They're so safe, right? Being behind with their phone, and they can say all these things that are their fantasies. But getting them to actually say it out loud is a whole other issue, right? If not, sex therapy wouldn't exist, but it does. Right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So I do wonder, like, if if there should be like a shift in conversation, a shift in like actually getting to know the person in terms of like their essence, because we are doing very interesting and very odd conversations online that really don't translate into real life, and they're not sustainable. You can't sustain that type of chemistry, especially sexual chemistry, throughout your entire relationship when you start with that texting back and forth and trying to get like really spicy and steamy all of a sudden, unless you're on like Grindr, when it's like, yeah, it's a hookup, right? Like that is the point of it. But if you're looking for a long-term committed relationship, starting off by sexting is not a road to like success.
Yeah. And that's it. Now, the one other thing that comes to mind as you're saying that, and all great things, so thank you for sharing that, was is it, are we, is online dating harder than it has ever been, or is dating harder than it ever has been because, ironically, technology, we're not good at communicating as well. Like a lot of people, I don't want to say all, but a lot of people are not good at communicating, even compared to, how well we used to communicate 20, 25 years ago. Like, is that a thing? And again, it's ironic because we are talking about online dating. So whether it's Tinder, Bumble, or whatnot, or whatever is your app of choice. Because it's like, okay, you're sitting here. Because I've been guilty. Like, you're sitting here. Okay, I'll pull up the app. You're bored. See if anyone on there piques your interests. And if they do, then, if they do, I know I'm likely to get into a conversation. But, sometimes people are just like twiddling their thumbs and they're bored.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's so much the fact that we've like lacked communication skills. I actually think it's like those little dopamine hits that we get, right? It's just like, oh, this person liked me. Okay, I'll engage. And then, oh, there's another one. I'll engage with that one. Oh my gosh, there's another shiny one. I'll engage. And so it becomes kind of like a game of whack-a-mole instead of actually engaging with another human on the other side, right? So I think it's like weird dopamine hits of, oh, someone likes me, someone's approaching me, someone liked my picture, my profile, whatever it is. I'm going to hit that like interest for a minute. And then if somebody else pops up, well, this one goes away and this one comes up, right? I think that's why so many millennials are identifying with ADHD, because we've got all these things coming at us. Right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is too, is it's like, it's really, I don't want to say if I'm going to say this from my own personal experience, but it also is I think that as a society, committing to something is not something we are always good at. Like, in terms of, okay, you have a good conversation with someone, you connect, there's some chemistry, you find them attractive, you're within driving distance, so you can totally get together on a Friday or a Saturday night, but then it's actually the follow through. We are not, and I'm guilty of it too, we are not always great at the follow through, because, sometimes your friend calls you and your friend says, hey, do you want to get together and do this? That's a lot easier getting together with your friend than it is presenting yourself as shiny and new, because you have to be on. Like, you really, truly have to be on.
Yeah. And you have to reintroduce yourself. You have to tell a new person about yourself. On the first date, you're telling them all these things about you, right? And if you've been going on multiple first dates for the last couple months, you do get to a point of burnout as well. Right. Online dating can be very exhausting when you're constantly meeting new people, telling them who you are, and then getting rejected or not getting rejected, but at the same time, you don't like them. It's an exhausting kind of merry-go-round that unfortunately is working for some people and is not working for others. And you do need to kind of take your time, and you need to take breaks. And you need to set yourself up for success and not burn out instantly by just doing all of these dates all at once.
I wish that there wasn't the privacy issue with online dating. It's really a really fun episode. If I had my cell phone, I pulled up Tinder, and then you could kind of say, Will, yes, swipe left, swipe right. I mean, I wouldn't do that for privacy reasons, and I don't want to get into trouble. But how fun would that be?
That would be like a reality type
And then you
online
can tell
dating.
me.
Yeah. And I'll tell you if there's like a red flag or a green flag of following that one through. That would actually be pretty hilarious. And unfortunately, no, we probably shouldn't do that. However,
but funny.
yeah.
We'll just have to wait and do that over a glass of wine on a Saturday night, not so much on a live stream or a
Perfect.
podcast.
I love that. We'll do like a private event. We could just host a private event of online dating with Will.
Oh my God. That's actually, it's so funny because as much as I'm an outgoing person and I'm an extrovert, there's certain things that like really, really, really would make me like super nervous. And some people are surprised to find this out about me. That is one of them. It's weird. It's like, I usually want to peacock, but that's not where I peacock. Like that's where I kind of get a little more private is with my personal life like that. Not that I've shared some things on here already and I'll share more to come, if you want to know or if people care, which they probably don't. But yeah, that's like a nightmare for me.
Okay, but I do have a question then, because you just opened the door, so I'm going to ask a question.
Okay, yeah.
When you look at a profile on any of the apps, what is like an instant like red flag or like instant ick for you when you see someone? What's something that just is like, nope.
Oh my gosh. Well, don't be holding a fish. Don't be holding a fish. Don't be in a picture with somebody else or a group of people.
Okay,
like,
why not?
Look, it can be a selfie because I take selfies all the time and people like make fun of me for that. But it could be a selfie, but I don't want like you and your mom on your Tinder profile. Like I'm sure your mom is a lovely lady, but I'll meet her later on if you're that wonderful.
Okay, so no fish, no group pictures. Anything else that kind of gives you like the I'm not interested?
The thing is like I think when people are like. And I'm not a prude and I'm not opposed to it, but it's like when people like broadcast the fact that they're like 420 friendly. It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. And I mean, listen, like, I'm not a complete angel. But that being said, like, it's really, I mean, maybe it is necessary. Maybe because people write about drinking, smoking and stuff. So, but it just seems like, okay, if you do it in a way that's like I don't know, help me out here. I don't want to die on this hill, but it's like one of these things where
you're not dying on this hill. I think you're right though. I think in the sense of like, is that necessary information to have? It seems a bit strange to be honest. Yeah, I think that is like, it's weird that when we go and do profiles, there are those like check mark spots, and that is right. Like it's a very interesting thing to add. I would actually like question why it's added, but if anyone has that answer, that'd be lovely.
That's where my head goes. Like I think that the drink smoke thing is fine because it gives you an idea, right? But I think it's like when someone adds that as like, okay, you've got like a couple of lines, and it's like must be 420 friendly. I'm like, and again, we've all done things, we've all had fun and whatnot, but that would not be the first thing that I would put on a profile to entice somebody, right?
Okay.
So yeah, what else? What else wouldn't I like? I'm trying to think. Like again, I'd almost have to pull it up to tell you, but
So tell me the green flags then. When you go on a profile and you're like, yes, I will swipe, yes, I will engage. What is something that you're like 100% I'm going for this one?
Just seeing someone who like takes care of themselves, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to by any means be extremely fit or in like a tank top and showing off their muscles or anything like that, but just like posting a photo of yourself that you can tell the person takes care of themselves, and that's
definitely hygiene, like takes care of themselves, good hygiene, like actually like knows how to be an adult, let's say.
Yeah, and like post a nice picture, but also like tells me something about who you are and what your personality is in your little bio or in your little write-up. I mean, listen, I'm a music lover. I love pop culture. So if I see something on there that's like, oh, like I also like that song, or oh, I have an opinion about that as well. Like that's like that makes me think, okay, I could probably have a conversation with this person, or not even if we have the same taste, but just okay, like we can talk about music, or we can talk about such and such, right? Show me you have a personality. Like as much as people say, oh, it's not the personality, like it's so the personality, because I can never imagine being in a long-term relationship with someone who is boring.
Oh my gosh. And again, that goes back to the essence, right? It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you both share the same music taste. It's about the essence of what you guys are building together. You're right. You can't be with someone that's boring, can't hold a conversation, or doesn't know themselves. I love that you mentioned before that idea of knowing and loving yourself in order to then engage with the other human. It's such a beautiful thing, and it's necessary for dating. I think that's why it's so much of online dating goes down the wrong rabbit hole, because people don't actually know who they are, or they don't know what they're offering. And so they can't accept back from somebody else, right? So I love the fact though that you're saying like you've got your red flags, you've got your green flags. Now, what if you were to find out that they had like another relationship, or like you're starting to talk to this person and all of a sudden you do a Google search and you find out they're in a relationship? Would you say something, or would you just end it?
If I'm going to see this person with hopes that I would like to spend more than one night with them. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying?
like
Like
you,
you're saying like
yeah.
ideally this is someone who I'm going to be dating, and then maybe it would turn into a relationship. And then through a quick search, I don't know. I think I think I probably would say, I'd probably ask them about it. And I would say, hey, like we followed each other on Instagram, and I've noticed that there's a lot of pictures with you and this other guy. Honestly, I just don't want to waste either one of our times, right? Is this someone who you are newly with? Is this someone who you are, um, it was an ex? Like that would be something that like, why waste people's time? Like that's the whole thing about dating and online dating. It's like, if you want to be with someone, if you want to date someone and eventually get in a relationship with someone, like put in the work, put in the effort, and both be on the same page. Because if you're not both on the same page, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, but unfortunately, people are so selfish, right? And that's the problem. Like when
Yeah.
you are online dating, people are looking for that dopamine hit. So people are out there looking for a relationship, even though they're already in one. And again, this is cheating, not like open relationships, right? They're seeking out more like of that adrenaline, right? And so they do waste people's time, unfortunately.
I don't know. And I'm going to put something on you because you're not looking on online dating at this point in your life,
Right.
thankfully. What is thankfully for you, what is your take on people? Because I think that this is different, but some people don't, with flirting.
Like in online dating? What do you mean?
No, just so you're, not online dating right now, right? We can say that.
Right.
And if someone was flirting with you, or somebody was flirting with somebody that you were
Oh.
with, like, what would your take on that be? Like, would you be like, okay, that's not cool? Like, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you shouldn't be flirting with them? Or is it just sort of like, you think it's human nature and it's natural?
Oh, I like that. I don't know if it's human nature and it's natural. I don't know if I would say that, but I would say that a lot of different personalities have very flirtatious personalities, right? So I think that depends on like who you are and who your partner is, and then understanding that, right? So if you're with a partner that you know is more flirtatious, is more charismatic, is more open to those things, but you know, love, trust, and respect them, then them flirting or being, again, charismatic, let's call it, is not a thing that's going to add any insecurity into your relationship, right? But I think that if you have a partner who isn't flirty, who doesn't
Uh-huh.
flirt with you and
Mhm.
isn't charismatic, and then you see them flirting with somebody else, that's going to add insecurity into your relationship, right? But that's why the conversation of that is important. So you can be an incredibly friendly person, right? And if your partner knows, like if my partner knows I'm going to be outgoing and friendly to people,
Yeah.
right? And he's comfortable and secure in that, then that's wonderful. But if he didn't know that about my personality, then of course it's going to be like adding insecurities and disrespect, right? But it all goes back to, what is your relationship contract? What are we talking about? What do we know about each other? is flirting okay? Is it not okay? For some people, and I've had it in many times in my office, that flirting is actually seen as a level of infidelity, right? It's a level of like emotional infidelity. Like some people do go that far in terms of
I
what they feel
know.
is appropriate or not. So I
I
on case to case.
I don't want to judge somebody, but it like that to me seems like that is the other end, right? Because I mean, some people when they're like I think I can be a flirty person because I know I'm a friendly person. I know I'm outgoing. If I like someone, whatever that means, whether I just like them as a person or, maybe I'm attracted to them or whatnot, or even if I'm not, like I can be flirty, and it's just kind of like, I've always wondered that if I was in a relationship with someone who didn't, who maybe was drawn to that aspect about me, but then when, the shoes are on someone else's feet, that I've never had that problem, but that could be a problem if say I'm giving someone else attention or they're giving me attention, even as a whole. Like I'm one of those people, like I admit it, I love attention. Like I do love attention, but I think in a healthy way, because number one, and I say that I don't even just mean like with dating. I mean, in general, I think to do this, you have to like a certain amount of attention. Like you just do.
But you use two different words there, which I think is really important to differentiate. There's a difference between being friendly and flirty. I think there is a difference. And unfortunately, there is a fine line, and I think it needs to be defined within your relationship. But if you're just an outgoing, friendly person, it can be interpreted as flirting. But
Right.
flirting was also with the intention of being wanted and for me to want you. And there is a bit of a level of attraction. And there is, again, that desire to be wanted. So if I'm flirting with you, it's because I want you to want me, right? But if I'm friendly with you, that's a
Yeah.
different, but it can be misconstrued. And unfortunately, a lot of relationships get into trouble with that, right? Because if you're just an incredibly friendly person, then you're going to maybe be seen as flirty, but the desire to be with that person is not there.
It's not there. It's not there. And speaking of all of these questions of friendly versus flirty and online dating, because that's what it's all been about today on Spill the Tea, right? So I think it's time that we get to our question.
Let's do it. Let's spill the tea. What's our question
Okay.
today, Will?
So I matched with a guy on Tinder and we were chatting for over a week and we really hit it off. So we ended up exchanging phone numbers. I sent this guy a TikTok with a link. This is kind of funny. So once he viewed it, I could see his profile and now have his last name because obviously didn't click before to ask the last name. So I look him up on social media, every platform to get to his Instagram, and he has pictures of a girl up on his page. So I ask him if it's his girlfriend he's cheating on or if it's his ex and he still has pictures up of her. And he tells me he can explain. And he tells me that they broke up 10 days ago. Moral of the story, do you think it's a red flag? And do you think 10 days is too soon to get back on Tinder?
Well, what's your take on this one? I want to give you first crack at this one. You had a lot of reactions to what you were reading.
There was a lot in there. And the biggest question is though, I mean, I feel like I shouldn't say she, this person, was doing her research. She had a feeling that something, even before she found out, she obviously had a feeling something was off. So she went with her gut and she did a little bit of research before she went out with this person or wanted to go out with this person, which completely makes sense. I mean, it's funny that it's interesting to me that this guy, because she did say it was a guy, that they're back on Tinder after just breaking up with their partner. But I said interesting, I didn't say bad. But I think that some people will do that as almost a coping mechanism for going through a breakup, where it's kind of what you're talking about, getting those compliments or the dopamine and all this sort of a thing, right? So if this person went through a really bad breakup and still has pictures of the ex all over his Instagram, he is also going on to Tinder, is not even probably in that moment, like he's probably being like stupid and not thinking about the fact that he has those photos on Instagram and that person probably wasn't going to see them until much later on. So I think that they will often probably do that as a way to get through the breakup. Is it a red flag? I don't know. And I know that's not a great answer, but I feel like that's a tough one. Like, I feel like that's just, again, you got to open up those lines of communication. Know that you're kind of taking a chance, but you're always taking a chance, aren't you?
You are always taking a chance. I will say though, I don't know if I always agree with this idea of not having any evidence of past relationships on your social media or like even on like in your life, right? Like they were still a chapter in your life. And this idea of just like erasing all of that, which also is incredibly difficult on social media to erase bulk photos. So let's
Yeah.
also give him credit that maybe he didn't have time. But there
Wait,
is,
so can I ask you this? Do you mean bulk
yeah.
photos in like those posts that have like 5 or 6?
No, I mean like when you go
Oh,
down your feed or even like all the social media platforms, like if you go down your feed deleting, you'd have to go like individually one
I
by one.
know.
So right. And that's
I
a
know.
lot of work. I
I thought you
do.
meant like a carousel because I was like, I've done that where I had like 4 or 5 photos and I wanted one of those photos out. And like, bye, you're out.
I love that.
I'm that petty. I'm that next level of petty.
I love that. I think more so the idea of like, there's no reason to expect someone to erase a person that was important in their life from their social media, or from their life in general, right? So he has a past, you have a past, we all have a past. That's okay. That doesn't mean that we're less interested in the next person. In terms of the 10 days, I will say this until I'm blue in the face. Time is different for emotional healing for every single person. So this person could have been in this relationship. Let's say they were in a relationship for a year, but maybe emotionally disconnecting for 6 months, which means by the time they broke up, they had already disengaged and healed and were ready to move on to somebody else. And that's okay. I don't think we can always look at it as like, oh, they should have broken up and like had 6 months to themselves because that's the standard. Every person evaluates grief and emotion and breakups in a very different way. So I don't know if there's no standard. I would say that. Is it a red flag? Only if he makes it a red flag. I think there's no communication in terms of why he still has the pictures up, whether or not he's still involved with this person. Are they still living together? Does he still have communication or not? Why is he up on Tinder so like close to the breakup? Could it be that they had actually like not been okay for months and he was just ready to move on?
I mean, it's that situation I don't think is black and white. I
No.
think that, again, communication, it goes back to that, is something that needs to be happening because it could be all of the things. It could be very many things that it could be, or it could just be, in some people, like you said, deal with heartbreak differently, maybe disconnected, or maybe it's a situation of going out there, getting back on that horse again.
And like you said, it could also be coping and distraction, right? It might be that too. Maybe he's just looking for a little bit of like, I don't know, TLC, right? When it comes to a broken heart. And so he's engaging with this person and having the conversation. I think asking questions, I love that this person, like the person that gave us this question, she asked, right? She asked very pointedly. She didn't assume anything. She asked the question. She's getting the answers. And if you have a gut feeling that he's lying, well, then run the other way.
I don't know how to top that. Like, that's why you do what you do and I do what I do, because that's perfect advice. Truly perfect advice.
Okay, so Will, for this last sip of
Yes.
online dating and the
Okay.
online dating world, after the red lights, the green lights, all the
Yeah.
flags that we've talked about,
Yeah.
what do you think is your last sip for today? What would you tell people that are online dating? What to look for, what not to look for? What's the
Okay. So make sure you put into online dating what you expect in return.
Oh, I love that. We need to like put that in a little frame. I like that. Okay.
It would
Yes.
look
You
quite
expect
nicely over here, wouldn't it? Yeah. Just because you can't expect someone to provide all of the things that you're not giving them or that you're not putting out there in the atmosphere.
I fully agree with that. I think that's great advice. I think my last tip for today is if you are online dating and you're finding yourself in a place of burnout, take a break. Nothing is going to happen. Reset yourself. Try something different. Try something new. And then when you get back onto the online dating world, do what Will just told you to do.
And you know what? Thank you again for another fun show or fun podcast with Spill the Tea. Now I'm going to just, sign off of here, get on my phone, and let you know if I'm successful in our next episode.
There's going to be a lot of people signing up for Tinder right now, knowing that you're on there. So I feel like you're going to get so many matches, so many DMs. So yeah, if you're single and ready to mingle, Will is too, but make sure you put your expectations in check before you reach out.
Oh my God, stop. And that's a tea. That's
it for this episode of Spill the Tea. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for more candid conversations. Got a burning question or topic you want us to cover? Slide into our DMs. We're always here to spill the tea. Follow us on socials at the Spill the Tea Pod, at Will Nash on Air, and at Sex Off the Pedestal.